protecting the police every single day.
Bail law came to North America with the English legal traditions. Even before the adoption of the U.S. Constitution and the Bill of Rights, a Judiciary Act in 1789 guaranteed a right to bail in all non-capital cases. For a person charged with a capital offense, where death is a possible punishment, bail was discretionary. It depended on the seriousness of the offense. The Eighth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution states that excessive bail shall not be required. Regardless, the Supreme Court has ruled that the U.S. Constitution permits holding a defendant without bail in some circumstances. In other words, while bail is a constitutional right, it is not an absolute right. Current bail practices are unconstitutional because they violate the rights to due process and equal protection under the 14th Amendment, the prohibition against excessive bail found in the 8th Amendment, and the right to a speedy trial guaranteed by the 6th Amendment. Widman Act, named after fallen Fort Myers officer, to become law. By. Published on May 4, 2011. The third time was the charm for the Andrew Widman Act. After failing to pass through the legislature the last 2 years, the bill, which is named after the slain Fort Myers police officer and designed to give officers and judges the necessary tools to keep repeat violent felony offenders off the streets, is now heading to Governor Rick Scott's desk to be signed into law. The Florida House passed the bill 115-1 on Wednesday. The only holdout, Representative Betty Young, D. Tampa, switched her vote after roll call. The Senate unanimously passed the bill last week. Freshman Representative Matt Caldwell, R-Lehigh Acres, who sponsored the bill in the House, called it his greatest success so far as a lawmaker. He also credited Senator Lizbeth Benequisto, R. Wellington, the Senate sponsor, as well as his predecessor, Nick Thompson, who carried the bill the previous 2 years in the House. Officer Andrew Widman was gunned down by a violent felon who should have been in prison because of the violations of his probation, Caldwell said on the floor. This bill will address that concern. The House passed the bill every year since it was first introduced in 2009, but it has never made it out of the Senate until this year. Susanna Makinson, Widman's widow who remarried last summer and moved out of state, cheered when she was told by a reporter of the bill's passage. "It's wonderful," she said. "I know these things take time. I think it happened pretty quickly actually. Some people need a lot longer for legislation that is important to them." Widman's name will now signify the protections that all Florida officers and citizens deserve, something that his family can be proud of, Benequisto said. "We look forward to the governor's signature and letting Widman's family know their sacrifice has created a lasting legacy," Benequisto said. Widman, a one-time Christian minister who had been working as a Fort Myers police officer for just over a year, was gunned down by a career criminal while responding to a domestic violence call in downtown Fort Myers on an early morning in July 2008. His killer, Abel Arango, had recently been arrested in Lee County on drug trafficking charges, a violation of his probation. Only after he was released on bail was a warrant, with a no-bond provision, issued for his arrest for violating his probation. Despite the warrant, Arango managed to walk out of a Lee County courtroom after making a first appearance in the drug case. In the case of a probation offender being arrested on a new charge, the Andrew Widman Act would allow a first appearance judge to immediately issue an arrest warrant for the probation violation. If signed by Scott, as is expected, it would go into law on July 1. Fort Myers Police Chief Doug Baker called the Widman Act a no-brainer for Florida, but said it's unfortunate it took 3 years to pass. "It will help bring closure to his department," Baker said, "but more importantly, it will help save lives by keeping violent offenders behind bars. I'm very humbled and honored that our officers' name is attached to legislation that is going to protect and save the lives of future law enforcement officers in the state, and community members," Baker said. "For us, we are never going to forget Officer Widman's sacrifice. 10 Florida law enforcement officers have died or been killed in the line of duty so far this year," 6 by gunfire, according to the Officer Down Memorial Page website. The Widman Act could help prevent future law enforcement killings, Caldwell said. We've lost more than a half dozen officers this year that very well could have not happened if we had had this in place already, he said. All of those killers were violent ex-felons who should be behind bars. Makinson said passage of the legislation is a good thing that she's wanted to happen, but said she didn't believe it would bring closure. I don't know how any form of legislation could do that, she said. It's never going to bring Andy back. It's never going to heal my children. That's something that really only God can do, and really it takes a lot of time. Connect with Ryan Mills at www.naplesnews.com/staff/Ryan-Mills. What is Florida's Widman Act? What is the Widman Act in Florida, and how does it affect my violation of probation case? Widman Act. I recently learned of a Florida law known as the Widman Act because of a recent violation of probation case I handled. A client who I represented on a pending Sarasota violation of probation case was out on bond waiting for his next court date when he was arrested for a new criminal charge in Charlotte County. Although he had a relatively low bond on the Charlotte County criminal charge, the Charlotte judge ordered that my client be held with no bond under the Widman Act. The new arrest in Charlotte County technically violated his Sarasota probation. The client was held for several days with no bond, and later transported to Sarasota County where he was brought before the first appearance judge. The Widman Act was a law passed in 2011 by the Florida legislature, and is now part of Florida Statute 948.06, 1c. The law was named in honor of a Fort Myers police officer, Andrew Widman, who was killed by a person who had a lengthy criminal history and an active warrant for violating his probation. The Widman Act law states that if a judge finds reasonable grounds to believe that a probationer or an offender has violated his or her probation or community control in a material respect by committing a new violation of law, the judge may issue a warrant for the arrest of the person. A judge at the first appearance or advisory hearing does not have to be the judge who actually presides over the case to issue the warrant, and does not have to wait for the probation officer to file a violation of probation affidavit. In other words, the judge who presides over the first appearance hearing can on his or her own motion order that the defendant be held in custody for a violation of probation, even though the court itself may not have jurisdiction over the violation of probation case. I have to admit that where I normally practice, Sarasota and Manatee counties, we do not use the term Widman Act. I would go even further to say that I have never had a prosecutor in Sarasota or Manatee ever ask for a hold under the Widman Act, even though the law has been in effect since 2011. When I went to my client's first appearance in Sarasota, I did feel a little better about myself when the presiding judge over the video asked aloud, "What is the Widman Act?" Since this case I have done quite a bit of research on the Widman Act to better educate myself. If you have any questions about your violation of probation case, or need further information regarding how the Widman Act might affect your violation of probation case, please feel free to call me for a free no-obligation consultation at 941-954-5333. Damages awarded. Trezevant v. City of Tampa, 741 F2D 336, 11th Sir 1984. Motorist illegally held for 23 minutes on a traffic charge was awarded $25,000 in damages. Sets foundation for $75,000/HR, 1,800,000/day.